Production funding for this program is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
He's had a hit TV show on MTV. He's dropped the ball for New Year's Eve. He's got a New York Times best-selling book. You talk about checking things off the bucket list. He's done many, many amazing things, but most importantly, he's inspired millions around to dream the impossible, but to realize the impossible. We're here for a conversation with Ben Neptune. So, Ben, your story begins in Canada.
Yep.
And rugby, which is, you say, the third most popular sport after hockey and hockey.
Yeah, third or fourth behind hockey.
Exactly.
Hockey.
Hockey's great.
Yeah.
Give us a starting point, though. Tell us the story of just growing up in Canada, playing rugby, and how that led to this amazing journey.
So I graduated high school. I was flying high. Things were good. Life was great. I had a scholarship to university. I made the national rugby team, which was, you know, my kind of biggest dream at the point. Because growing up in Canada, especially on the West Coast, just rugby was so big where I grew up. My high school coach was a national coach, so this was like a huge, huge deal to me. So I was training for the World Cup, and as we were training, I started to think about, oh, what if I miss like an easy kick? You know, because I played fly half, which is like the quarterback and the field goal kicker in one. And so I started getting anxiety about the games, and I thought, oh, what if I blow it? And ultimately this anxiety would come at night, and it would cause me to not be able to sleep, and this lack of sleep led me down a path to get depressed. And after I got depressed, I was just kind of immobilized by it. I was totally incapacitated, and I was crippled by the depression to the point where I couldn't go to school, I couldn't go to practice, I couldn't leave the house. And this was a complete 180 for me who, you know, generally I'm someone who just loves never stopping, being around people, having fun, you know. And so all of a sudden I was just sort of stuck in my parents' house. And ultimately it was my friends that kind of came and said, listen, Ben, we're going to a new town this summer. And this is after I dropped out of school and like everything had come crumbling down.
And you lost your place in the team too.
Yeah, everything. And my friends were like, listen, like we're going to work for in the summer, you know, in a new town, and we think you should come. And I didn't want to go, but they were pretty insistent that I come with them. And so, you know, I got in the car with them. They helped me pack my bags and left. And only then did I start kind of feeling slowly back to myself, where I got a job. I was meeting new people that were inspiring. You know, and ultimately, you know, a big part of it was talking about what was really going on, you know. And so I slowly kind of came out of this fog, and I realized that a big part of that was the people that I surrounded myself with. And I made a decision to only surround myself with people that inspired me after that. And that led me to kind of pick and choose from my friends who I wanted to hang out with. And one of them was this kid who was a filmmaker from the neighborhood that I really didn't know very well. And I called him up. I said, Johnny, I know you don't know me very well, but like you took my sister to prom, so like we kind of know each other. And I said, let's like make a movie. Like I want to make a movie with you. And we got together two other friends, and we started talking about the movie that we wanted to make, and didn't really know what it was going to be about. And Johnny got assigned this poem in English class called The Buried Life. And this poem was 150 years old, and it spoke to this feeling we were feeling of feeling buried. Like we had all these things that we wanted to do, but we weren't doing them. And it was like, you have moments when you're inspired, but then you get buried. And we thought, man, this guy's 50 in 1850 in England, and he's feeling like this. You know, we're probably not the first people to ever feel like this. So even before we knew what this documentary or movie was about, we called it The Buried Life. And we thought, how do we unbury ourselves? And we decided to make this bucket list. And we thought, let's just make the most epic bucket list we can ever imagine. So if we could do anything, what would we do? We would, you know, make the front cover of Rolling Stone. We would write a #1 New York Times bestseller. We would make our own TV show. We would go to space. We would, you know, grow a mustache. Yes.
Which I think is hilarious. But I mean, how old are you at this point?
21, you know?
Yes, I mean, you're young, and yet...
Can't grow a mustache yet. I still can't grow a mustache. Yeah.
But the idea is, you know, really throw it out there in a big way and say, these are the things that we're going to go after. We're going to follow our dreams. We're going to create this epic bucket list and go out and do this. But then there's another side to this. So it's not just you, it's inspiring others and helping them fulfill their bucket list too.
Right, yeah. So we thought, if we're going to go after our list, why don't we help someone else do something they want to do every time we cross something off? So we'll cross something off our list, and then we'll help a stranger cross something off their list. And we kind of live by this mantra, which is the question, what do you want to do before you die? And that question, you know, is important for us for many reasons, because one, it reminds you that you're not going to live forever. And by understanding that, you know, you're not immortal, it forces you to look at what's important to you now. And what was important to us now was this list. And so we thought, well, let's ask people as we go, what do you want to do before you die? And at the very least, we can learn, you know, from them and ask them, like, well, have you done it? And if not, why? Or if you have, how did you do it? And if we can help them, then we will. And so that was the journey. And the idea was, to be honest, in the beginning, the documentary was going to be about asking people the question, what do you want to do before you die, and helping them. And we would do our list on the side just because we wanted to. But we thought, well, no one really cares about us doing our list. So let's like make this film about asking people. And as we started to go, the surprising thing was that people wanted to help us cross things off our list as well. So all these strangers stepped up to be like, hey, I saw your list online. I can help you ride a bull or get up on a hot air balloon or make a toast to a stranger's wedding. And our list just, you know, kept getting crossed off without even us realizing that it was happening. And at the same time, we were helping other people. So this was a 2-week road trip that we were going on. We boarded an RV, we bought a camera on eBay. We just were like, we're going to go do this before we go back to school. I told my boss that I had a wedding, like an Indian wedding.
Don't watch this.
It was a 2-week wedding. And right away, we were on the front page of the newspaper, and my boss called me. He's like, hey, what the hell's going on?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
But the very first one, I think it's kind of appropriate that you were a knight in shining armor.
Yeah.
Literally. That was one of the first things you crossed off.
Be a knight for a day, yeah. So I was able to get this, I don't even know how. I was a beer rep at the time. So I traded my friend who owned a restaurant beer for a gift certificate at a restaurant that I traded to this woman that has this suit of armor that I got for 2 hours. That usually she rents for like $100 a day. So I was like, let me borrow it for 2 hours. Here's a gift certificate for like $50. Borrowed it, went into the RV, put it on full like helmet, sword, chainmail, everything. Very heavy, very sweaty. And we went down to the inner sort of downtown area of Victoria, which was small. We called all the media down. And
well, your friend had called the media. You didn't know this, saying that there was going to be a big stunt.
Yes. So my friend had pulled one on me. So he had called all the media saying, you know, you guys are going to want to see this big stunt. And I was just happy to be able to walk in this thing. So all the media was there, and it was just kind of an embarrassing moment when I came out to these cameras. And then there was a young boy walking with his mom holding a plastic sword. And when he saw me, his eyes lit up. He just couldn't believe that there was a real life knight walking around. And he didn't say a word. He just let go of his mom's hand and ran over to me and just bent down on one knee and bowed his head. So I knighted him because I was a knight. And of course, I had one job, to knight people and be chivalrous. And so all these kids started gathering around. I started knighting all these kids and walking them across the street, you know, saving damsels in distress. And a photographer was there. There were some photos taken, and we left the next day. Officially left on our first tour. And we were excited because we had crossed off Be a Knight for a Day. It was a success. And we picked up the paper, and we realized we had actually crossed off 2 list items, and the second being make the front page of the newspaper. So now we had crossed off 2 items, and we were leaving. And this momentum was just beginning to build. And we crossed off, like, open the 6 o'clock news. And so, like, more awareness was spread. So by the end of this 2-week tour, we had crossed off list items we never thought we could. We'd helped all these people. And our email inbox that we had created and put on our website for people to send us, you know, emails was filled with people being like, hey, I saw your list. Like, I can help you do number 52 or number 63. Or here's my dream. Can you help me play the bagpipes or fly a fighter jet or whatever?
That's something that you talk about often, is the fact that, one, obviously writing down what your bucket list is. So put it on paper and write it out so that it's real, it's tangible, you can see it. But then put it out there. And you'll be surprised, you know, when you start putting it out there, people will come and they want to help, and vice versa. And so I think it's really neat, just by putting it out there you learn, wow, this power of connectivity, especially in today's social media, where people, they want to be a part of your story.
And you know, it's if you give someone the chance to be a hero, generally they're going to take it, you know. And I think it's because people deep down want to help, and they also want to be a part of your story, you know, especially if you talk about it with enthusiasm and authenticity and passion. You know, people will step up in the most unexpected ways, and by sharing it, you just increase your odds of somebody helping you, right? Because if you don't share it, no one's going to help you. You're all on your own. It's just you and trying to do that thing. But you just never know who might be able to step up and help you. And so I think it's about sharing it in a broad way, you know, whether that just be friends and family or people that you meet, or, you know, when you're talking with people, say, oh yeah, I'm working on this thing. I really want to write a book, you know. Do you know any authors? It's like, well, probably they do. They know someone that might know someone that knows an author.
Right.
You know, and then you call them. And I think it's also about targeted outreach, where you say, okay, I want to write a book. I'm going to reach out to a few people that I think might be able to help me, either people in media or people, you know, I know this person knows someone that writes a book. And so just starting to like make those asks, because at the end of the day, everyone that you're asking for help used to be where you were, you know, especially for young people. It's, you know, anyone that you say, okay, I want to talk to Richard Branson. It's like, well, how do you go about doing that? Well, first of all, just know that Richard Branson used to be sitting where you're sitting, you know, and so they're going to remember that time when they were your age or when they were in your position just starting something. And hopefully they're going to remember that. And so it's about thinking about creative ways to get to them, or creative ways to get these things done that ultimately will get the people's attention and sort of respect enough to be like, yeah, I want to help this person.
Well, speaking of creative, that's creativity got you all the way to President Obama and playing basketball.
Yes.
I think there's so many neat storylines with all these bucket list items, but you know, that's a really, really cool one. And it shows the power of persistence, audacity, thinking creatively.
Yeah.
Share a little bit of that story.
So this is the biggest thing on the list by far, you know, is number 95, play basketball with President Obama. And, you know, as we go after these list items, no one's helping us do these things. It's just myself and my 3 friends. And even when we did the show, it was always, that was the rule. We signed the deal with MTV explicitly saying, we'll do this if you don't help us with anything. Because that will undermine the entire reason why what the Buried Life stands for. It's anyone.
Which it is pretty cool that they give you total creative control.
Yeah, total autonomy to go and shoot with our friends and, you know, make the show and really not pulling any strings. So when we, you know, you see it when we crossed off, like we tried to streak a field and get away. Well, we streaked the field, but we didn't get away, and then we went to jail. You know what I mean? So it's like this stuff was all real. And for President Obama, we tried to play basketball with him. We thought, okay, we don't know any politicians, so let's just go to DC because we'll, you know, hopefully meet some.
In a big purple bus.
Yeah.
Named Penelope.
We have a 1969 beautiful purple transit bus, yeah. And so we drove her down and, you know, got some attention, started talking with people and asked them if they knew the president, right? Which didn't work. And then we just realized that, well, most politicians have their information listed publicly, right, online, because you can like contact your local congressman. You can contact these people and express, you know, anything really, what's going on, so you can make requests and stuff like that. So we contacted hundreds of people on Capitol Hill in Washington saying, hey, our dream is to play basketball with the president. Can you help us? We're trying to prove that anyone can do anything. And if 4 regular guys can play basketball with the president, it shows that anyone can do anything. And most people turned us down, but slowly we started taking meetings with people, and if they liked us, they would pass word above. And essentially we were lobbying in DC to play basketball with the president. And we made our way up to Senator McCaskill, who then put in a call to the Secretary of Transportation. At the time, his name was Ray LaHood. And Secretary of Transportation was just, he was befuddled that we were in his office. He couldn't believe that we were meeting with him. He didn't understand why we were in his office. And we explained to him, and he said, yeah. We won him over, and he said, okay, guys, I'm going to make a phone call right now. And he walks over his desk, and there's a white phone. He calls the White House. And he says, I'm meeting with the Buried Life guys right now, and they're upstanding gentlemen, and I want you to know that they have my support and my endorsement. Right? So
you're like, we're in.
We're in. We thought we could just sit back and practice, a crossover and actually just like wait for the president to call. And we get an email from the White House staff, and they say, thank you for your inquiry about trying to play basketball with the president. No way.
Yeah. Sorry.
Not happening. Best wishes. And we were at that point we probably should have just left, but we thought, okay, we'd learned this thing that in Washington there was these games that went on with the president, and the way they went down was through his personal aide. His personal aide was a guy named Reggie Love. Reggie Love set up all the games through text message through a select few in the administration. He'd send them day of, saying, here's the game, this court, let me know if you're in. So we thought, we got to get a hold of Reggie Love. Like, he's our inside man. And we found his email, and we started sending him emails the same way that he sent out messages, which was like, Reggie, you and the president versus us. This court at the YMCA, this Thursday, 7 o'clock, be there. And we did this many times, and we'd show up at the court, and he wouldn't show up.
Right.
So finally we had to leave, and basically I got a phone call on my phone from a blocked number, and I picked it up, and it's just this kind of commanding voice, and it says, like, what's this I hear about you wanting to play basketball against the president and I? And I was like, Reggie, thank you for calling. And I told him why we wanted to do it, and he was excited about it. He said, you know what, I think I can make this happen. Give me 2 weeks, I'm gonna run it by the press team. They sign off, we're good. And we hear 2 weeks later, and Reggie says, gentlemen, I talked to the press team. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Denied again.
Yeah. And it was a heartbreaking, failure for us. We aired the episode. We left it to be continued, and because we thought, this whole thing is really number 53 on the list is make a TV show, right? So that was one thing on the list. Another is play basketball with President Obama. So we're left to be continued because we wanted to show that we're just going to keep doing this. And Reggie, I think, felt bad because he thought it was going to happen. So he was like, listen, if you're ever back in D.C., let me know, and I'll show you the White House basketball courts. And we were back in D.C., and we called him, and he actually met us at the White House and showed us around and showed us the courts and his one presidential basketball. And we're shooting around with the basketball, and all of a sudden, President Obama comes on the court. Completely surprises us. We didn't even think he was in town.
You thought he was out of town, right?
100% thought he was out of town. We were told he was out of town. And he was just like, hey, he's, first of all, the coolest person in the world. He's just like beyond. He's like remember your friend's dad in like high school that you would end up just going and like hanging out with the dad more than the friend? He's like that times 100. He's just like the coolest guy. And he said, yeah, I heard you guys are in town. I thought at least I would come down and shoot a basket with you. And so we shot with him for 15, 20 minutes. White House photographer was there. We talked with him about some politics. 'Cause he was working on the healthcare, and we said, well, we're Canadian, we support it. Like universal healthcare. So it was a beyond moment where we sort of, you walk away from that and you're kind of like, well,
anything is
I
possible.
guess you can do anything, And it actually, funny kind of side story is this is what made the day. It was just like sort of the cherry on top. We were supposed to have our call with the Oprah producers because we got asked to be on Oprah, which was another thing on the list. So we were late for our call with the Oprah producers, and we said, hey guys, sorry. We're playing basketball with the president at the White House, and it was just like this whole day was so outrageous that we were kind of like walked away. We're like, you got to be kidding me! Like this is bananas, and just it goes to show like you can kind of just do whatever you put your mind to.
Well, and so when you talk about your story, and obviously with the rugby and the letdown, a big part of your platform now, and you've got the book out and it's about to be reissued. We'll talk about that in a second, but is mental illness and really what we can do as a society to help and encourage others. And when you look at really, coming alongside those and helping them fulfill their bucket list, you start realizing once I unpack this, there's a lot of people that are hurting, but at the same time, there's a lot of good that we can do together. Share kind of some of the stats and how it's the four out of five really that can help the 1 out of 5.
Yeah. So this is a major crisis right now. So you look at the opioid crisis, which is a huge problem. And the opioid crisis affects, it's roughly 66 people a day die from opioid abuse. Now, a stat that is arguably more shocking than that is 120 people a day die from suicide. So you're talking about someone every 15 minutes in this country. And if that isn't shocking enough, 120 people take their own life a day. For every one successful suicide, there's 25 attempts that we know about, right? And those are people that go to the hospital and that we actually, tag as a suicide attempt. Most people don't. So you're talking about thousands of people a day in this country are trying to take their own life. And what's almost more shocking is that no one's talking about it, because this can't be happening, and what the reality is that this type of struggle, 1 in 5 people struggle from mental illness, and 4 or 5, don't struggle consistently, but 4 or 5 will go through some sort of struggle, right? And this is why I think that people really need to talk about it, because this is something that affects everyone in some way, shape, or form. And if you don't struggle with it, you have a brother, a sister, a father, or a best friend that struggles with it. And that's just the truth of the matter. So what we need to do is start talking about it to break the stigma around mental illness and mental health, to actually open up the conversation to healthy, productive conversations, and normalize it. Because it's happening so much that it needs to be normalized. And this is something that everyone needs to be accountable for. Not just the people that are struggling to have the courage to step up, more so the other 4 and 5 that don't struggle consistently, to let those people that struggle feel okay to talk about it. Right. And there's just so many stigmas around mental health that they need to be shattered, or it is going to continue to be such a mammoth issue. And a lot of that is around the things that, mental illness, the word is so stigmatized, and mental health is so stigmatized. And we can break that stigma by having conversation and also changing the language that we use. So, what if instead of mental illness, we called it brain fitness, And now we're talking about the fitness of the brain that relates to the fitness of the body, which is a completely different connotation, and mental illness is just so packed with this type of, it's loaded with stigma. And so, I think that there's words that we can use that will change the actual, the language and the stigma itself. And so, one of the big things that I think is important is just, one, to educate people around what's going on, because people need to know about it, and people do know about it because it's affecting, so many people. And also just the fact that, look, this is a human condition, right? Humans struggle. That's just the way that it works. To be human is to struggle. You have ups and you have downs. You just need to be able to talk about those downs as much as you talk about the ups. Because when you do that, you understand that those downs are actually your strengths. And those weaknesses that you think are weaknesses are actually things that you can learn from, that you gain depth from, and that you can use to teach other people how to deal with their issues, and also build empathy with other people that have been through certain things. So there's a whole bunch of things that I think could really help, but it really comes down to just talking about it, being a human being. If you see someone that's struggling, or you think isn't acting like they usually act, just reaching out and be like, hey, are you okay? Is everything okay? And that will make the world of a difference.
So as we start wrapping up, talk about the kind of the second phase of the book, and then also too the documentary that you're working on as well.
We're re-releasing the book, and that's exciting because it's been a great journey with the book. It was a #1 New York Times bestseller, and what it is really is buried life for the 4 of us. Really started by getting triggered by different things. Right? I was really triggered by the people that I met when I was in the new town, and also by a friend that started a clothing line out of nowhere. Everybody was triggered by different things, but we had this moment where we saw, what was possible, and we were like, whoa, what could we do? If they did that, what could I do? And so the idea behind the book is to pull in, we asked for thousands and thousands of dreams. So we received over 10,000 bucket list items of people sending us their list. And then we took our favorite ones that moved us in some way, whether, it triggered us in some way, whether it made us laugh or, made us emotional or feel something. And we took those list items and we brought them to life through our favorite artists, and they created these amazing pieces of artwork with the list items. And then we tell our story throughout the book. So the goal of the book is just to trigger you in some way and hopefully give you pause to think about for a second what's important to you. Because at the end of the day, that's just what a bucket list is. It's just a list of the things that are the most important things to you in your life. And you just need to have a device like a list or a reminder or a group of friends that remind you that it's there, or else you'll forget about them. So the re-release of the book is updated. You know, we get to write some new copy and stuff that I think that, you know, definitely I've learned in the past couple years since the book has been released, and a new cover and some new quotes and some new images and stuff that we think are really powerful.
Well, and then give us a snapshot on, I know we don't have the release date yet, but the documentary.
So when we created Buried Life 10 plus years ago, it was to make a movie. It was a documentary that we wanted to create, and it was going to be, the plan was hit the road for 2 weeks and make the film. And here we are 10 plus years later. We haven't stopped being on the road, kind of, and we haven't made the film. But we've been filming the whole time, you know, and so the dream is the documentary, and we're just about finished it, and we've got a trailer, and we're finishing up really like tying all this footage together, which is really cool because it's thousands of hours of footage, and we have some rough cuts, and you see us grow up over the years, which is a bit of a trip. So that is going to be awesome. You know, we're shooting for number 100, which is go to space, you know, as the last list item.
The epic ending.
Yeah, and so yeah, so that'll come out, you know, soon next year, and then beyond. And so it's all been a really wild journey, you know, something I did not expect. I was studying business in school, and I dropped out to do this. And, you know, it just goes to show, I think, that when you do what you love, you really inspire other people to do what they love.
Well, you've inspired us here in Memphis. You inspire thousands and millions around the world with your story and what you're doing, and we greatly appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story and inspiring us. So thank you, Ben.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching A Conversation with Ben Neptune.